just in case I need it. Usually we have to wait 25 seconds, right? Okay. So welcome to the board meeting. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Jody?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, welcome to the board meeting and this public hearing. I'll now make a statement about the public hearing, right? Yes. So the next item on the agenda is for the board to hold a preliminary hearing on the proposed project. If you're interested in speaking at the hearing, please make sure you have signed the sign-in sheet, which includes your name and address, which is over here. After a presentation by the administration and its advisors, there will be an opportunity for the public to make comments about this project. At the hearing, we'll ask each person to limit their comments to 3 minutes and that the topic be limited to the proposed project for under consideration. The notice for this preliminary determination hearing was published as legally required. And at this time, I ask that Courtney Givens explain the purpose of this hearing.
Pursuant to 6.1.20, School Corporation must hold 2 public hearings and adopt a resolution to preliminarily determine to issue bonds or enter into a project that has a total project cost in excess of certain thresholds. These public hearings and the future consideration of resolutions are the very beginning of the legal process. No board action is legally required at this hearing. Rather, this hearing is solely to hear comment regarding the project.
We'll now hear from Dr. Smith about the process of determining and communicating the project to the community and the need for the project.
So I'll start with explaining the need for the project. One of our biggest challenges is keeping up with our aging bus fleet. We have some continuing drainage issues on our campus and HVAC systems that are near the end of their life. We also know we're experiencing the rising costs for diesel, insurance, utilities, along with changes in state law, more specifically SEA 1, have reduced what we can cover out of our operations fund. Each of these areas places significant strain on our operations fund. Issuing a bond will relieve some pressure on the operations fund because we will be able to pay, or rather reimburse, some capital expenditures from the debt service fund. We know we have to address the most urgent needs through replacement and improvements. Doing so will help us to ensure safe, reliable transportation for our students, efficient and functional campus infrastructure, and a comfortable learning environment for our students and staff. How we got to this point, a history of how we got to this point. So the school corporation is working with Baker Tilly to evaluate issuing a general obligations bond this fall to address various projects throughout the district. Our district can support the 2025 bond repayment while not increasing the 2026 debt service tax rate above the current rate of 40 cents. By acting now, we can take advantage of available borrowing capacity. It will allow us to maintain some flexibility for the future and ensure that our facilities remain safe and efficient for our students and staff. Dr. Smith, Dr. Jeff Hammond is here with us today, and I'm going to refer to him to cover the next section for us.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Hammond with Baker Tilly. I serve as Corporation's municipal advisor. I'm going to go through this packet of information here. As was mentioned earlier, this is the first of 2 project hearings. There will be no resolution or board action required this evening. There will be another project hearing next week, which will be the same financial information. But the portion that I will cover this evening is kind of highlighting some of those financial parameters that will ultimately be in the resolution to be considered at the next meeting. So I've included on slide 3 here, this is a chart of the school corporation's existing bonds as they are outstanding as of today. So currently, there are 4 bonds outstanding. There is one, I think it's the 2010 bonds or the 2010 bonds that are maturing at the end of 2025. And you see the payment structure of each of those. So the current annual payments in 2025 are at about $703,000 per year. And you can see there's some step downs beginning in 2028, fairly pronounced step downs in your annual payments per year. And then in 2029, there's a further step down. When we get to 2034, all of the currently outstanding bonds will be matured and repaid at that point. So we'll kind of go back to this in a couple slides, but I wanted to start with just that chart with your existing bond. I'm going to skip over page 4. That's just the data that populates that chart. So it has each of the bonds broken down, what the annual payment is associated with each of those. So moving to page 5, this is a calculation of the school corporation's general obligation bond capacity. So there's 2 types of bonds that can be issued by a school corporation. One is a general obligation bond. One is a first mortgage bond. The first mortgage bond is how we did the bonds last year in 2024, and it requires a building corporation and leased premises to do those bonds. Because the school has general obligation bonding capacity, which is shown on page 5, of about $983,000, we would be able to support this proposed bond as a general obligation bond. There's no need to have the building corporation involved, and then the school corporation would be the direct issuer. So I wanted to show the schedule first, and that kind of takes us to the next page and how we arrive at the borrowing amount for this project. So we're setting, and again, these parameters are maximum, so they're not to exceed amounts. Also, moving through this project hearing, you're not committed to do anything. This simply gives you the authority to issue bonds. It does not lock you into any decision that you would absolutely be required to issue bonds. So with that in mind, and being that these are maximum amounts to go into the resolutions, these are intentionally conservative on the conservative side. So we try to overestimate cost, overestimate interest rates, in hopes that when the bonds are sold, it would come in lower than that. But because these are maximums and we can't exceed them, we build in a little buffer in case the interest rates in the market. So we would be establishing the maximum borrowing amount at $980,000. That translates to about $855,000 in proceeds available. The reason for the difference between those 2 numbers is when you issue bonds, there's issuance costs associated with doing that. So we've subtracted that out from the maximum borrowing to get to that $855,000, which would be the amount of proceeds available after the bonds are sold. We've established, for purposes of the resolution, the maximum repayment term to be 10 years. We've set things up to give you the ability to choose that ultimate repayment term at a later date, but the maximum we would establish it at is 10 years. The estimated interest cost, this is based on that 10-year scenario, would be just over $251,000. That would be over the lifetime of the borrowings over that 10-year period. We've established the maximum debt service payment to be $500,000 per year. Again, that is a maximum. The estimated increase to the debt service fund levy over the 2025 debt service fund levy would be just under $93,000. However, the estimated increase to the tax rate would be 0. So because net assessed value has grown, we anticipate that you could bring this bond on in 2026 and maintain a level tax rate over where you were this year in 2020. And then there are a couple other percentages that are required per statute, so I'm just going to share those. The first is the current proposed annual debt service of the school corporation. So that's all your existing bonds plus this proposed bond divided by your net assessed value, and that percentage is 0.54%. And then the second percentage to be shared is the direct and overlapping debt as a percentage of the net assessed value. So that's school corporations, bonds outstanding, plus anything else overlapping. So that could be the county, the town, library, that all goes into that number. And divided by your net assessed value, that is 5.65%. Any questions over those maximum? All right. And then my last two slides here, and this is information that I would share prior in the executive session, but these are just the amortization schedules of what the proposed payment could look like. I've included a 6-year repayment on slide 7, and then on slide 8, there is a 10-year repayment scenario. Or excuse me, 8-year repayment scenario. So we've established these parameters to give you the flexibility. A decision is not going to be made on that until we get close to selling the bonds. But wanted to at least provide an example of how those two terms includes.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions if you have them. Or
Did anybody sign the? We will now open the public hearing. Would anybody like to speak? All right, the board will hold a second hearing in this room on October 9th, 2025 at 6 p.m. We move on to the 2026 budget hearing.
We will move on to tonight's budget hearing. This is an opportunity to share how we are planning and
Thank you.
prioritizing our resources to meet student needs, to maintain our operations, our education, and our debt obligations, while remaining responsible stewards of the taxpayer dollars. I'm going to walk you through a few key points and then answer any questions that you might have tonight. So in the notice, the copy of the notice to the taxpayers, looks like this, or maybe blue and white. Yes. Oh, it is in there.
See it. There's taxpayers. No.
All right, so we'll walk through this is the summary, and I know that Jennifer and Nick have been instrumental in helping to develop this, and they would be remiss if I didn't reiterate this is an estimate. So everything that we say and do here are estimates, including the numbers that we get from the state local tax. So this is for fiscal year 26, and it presents a number, or for the fiscal year of 26, we have a number of financial challenges and also opportunities for us here at Shakamak. We know our priority is going to remain on delivering high quality education while maintaining fiscal responsibility and balancing the two. Particularly, we're going to have to control some costs and related specifically to operations, notably our HVAC systems, rising utilities cost, ensuring that we are maintaining competitive teacher salaries while meeting our debt obligations and awaiting the rises that we anticipate in insurance. The 26 budget also attempts to balance that need with instructional excellence, operational efficiency, and effective debt service management. So below what you see in the notice to taxpayers is a fund breakdown, followed by, I'm going to share with you kind of an analysis of some major cost drivers. And another session, we can dig deeper into some budget balancing strategies that we can work together on as a team to contain costs. So tonight, let's talk about these funds that you see here on your page. One of the first things that was, I'll be honest with you, one of the hardest things for me to understand is when it talks about property tax cap credit. That is also what some people call the circuit breaker. So this is the cap that you are allowed to tax people at. It can't go above that. So this number is significantly higher than what we have ever received by over $100,000. So we're digging deeper into why it's so much higher this year than other years. But just so that you know, the property tax cap credit is considerably higher than we've ever had before. Next, let's start with the education fund. So when you look down, it's the third fund there. We are estimating $5,986,871. So what comes out of education fund? We can pay for salaries and benefits of certified staff, non-certified staff, instructional supplies can come out of this budget. But this is funded. You'll notice there's $0 under tax levy. This is not what we levy. This is what we get from state tuition support. That's why it's $0 in that column. So it's not a levy fund. This is a state tuition fund. And that's why, count day is so important for us in that fund. Okay, so now let's look at operations. Our operations fund, we estimate, this is an educated estimate, $1,830,818. Sorry, $1,830,818. What do we pay out of that? Utilities, so our gas, electric, HVAC, building, maintenance, repairs, general operations. Our insurance comes out of this. Transportation comes out of this. Non-instructional staffing. So we pay for our bus drivers, custodians, central office, and maintenance. The proposed levy, let's see, $1,290,879 would be a levy increase of approximately 11%, a little over 11%. And then let's look at the debt service. This is also the school pension debt. So we have estimated $945,000. This is what we pay our interest out of, our principal payments for existing bonds or debt. School pension bond obligations are in a separate fund. That debt fund we have at $172,688, and then the anticipated debt of $200,000 on the GO bond or the general obligation bond. So the current tax levy for debt service is at $656,753. Proposed increase, or the difference between the estimated funds and the current levy, approximately 32%, due to the reason why that looks a little bit higher there is due to our anticipated GO bond that we will receive hopefully in December. That is what I to present to you tonight for the budget. Questions?
Get a motion to. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Are we done?
Yes. Yep.
She asked questions or comments.
Questions or comments? There's no
She
other
said-
board business.
And
Yep.
there's no other board business.
So one of you put a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those. Meeting adjourned.
You can get to.
Yeah.
What time?
Well, JV starts at 6, so it should be,
Oh, never mind.
I mean,
Where's
right now,
mine?
7:30.
yeah, maybe closer to 7, depending on. Yeah, so we'll be good.
No, I was like distracted and reading.
Oh, these are just minutes. These just say that we met. So we adjourned. Yes.
That's what happened.